Welcome to Current Affairs Turkey. For decades, relationship between Ankara and Athens have been fluctuating between dialogue and crisis. Today, as Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis visits Ankara to meet President Erdoğan, the atmosphere is calm, but calm should not be mistaken for convergence. This visit is not just about a symbolic diplomacy, it is about a fundamental question. Is Athens ready to move beyond maximalist positions, or will all disputes simply resurface under new language? From Turkey's perspective, the path is forward and it is very defined. Cooperation from Ankara is not only possible, it is also desirable. This is the position that both Mr. Erdoğan and Foreign Minister have already voiced. But it cannot come at the expense of Turkish sovereignty and Turkish interests and Turkish strategic rights. At the core of this dispute lies maritime jurisdiction. Turkey argues that Greece's claims in the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean attempt to confine Turkey to narrow coastal corridor. Athens maintains that its islands, including small ones located just very few miles away from the Turkish mainland, should generate full maritime jurisdiction zone. But Ankara fundamentally rejects this interpretation. Turkey's position is rooted in the principle of equity, and this is how Turkey has approached to its relations with Greece. In semi-enclosed seas like Aegean, maritime boundaries must be negotiated on the basis of fairness and profanity, not maximalist readings that ignore geography. Because this is not about a cartographic disagreement. It defines access to sea lanes, energy resources, strategic depth, and increasingly defines, of course, regional influence. The Eastern Mediterranean has amplified these stakes. Natural gas discoveries over the past decades have transformed their regional alliances and turned the region into a potential energy hub. For Europe, that's seeking to diversify supply routes, this region carries strategic weight. But Turkey argues that energy cooperation frameworks designed without its participation are unsustainable. This is Ankara's position, basically. And of course, importantly, Ankara maintains that any durable energy architecture must include all relevant coastal actors, including the Turkish Cypriots. Otherwise, energy becomes a trigger for instability rather than integration. In the bilateral relations, of course, Cyprus and the situation on the island remains central. From Ankara's perspective, of course, Turkish Cypriots possess equal rights to hydrocarbon resources surrounding the island, and past unilateral exploration efforts heighten tensions precisely because they bypassed mutually accepted revenue sharing arrangements. If normalization between Ankara and Athens is to advance meaningfully, Turkey expects a more inclusive and a realistic framework on Cyprus, especially regarding the energy governance. Another persistent fault line is the militarization of certain Aegean islands. Turkey maintains that some of these islands were granted non-militarized status under international treaties, yet military deployments have increased, and from Ankara's viewpoint, this undermines trust and contradicts the spirit of confidence building measure that the two sides have been trying to do. Diplomatic engagement cannot flourish if security realities move in the opposite direction. And of course, confidence has to be mutual, not just rhetorical. Nevertheless, over the past 2 years, tensions in the Aegean have significantly decreased. Dogfights have sharply declined, and military communication mechanisms are functioning. Cooperation on irregular migration continues. High-level visits have resumed. President Erdoğan visited Athens in 2023. Mitsotakis visited Turkey in 2024. A short-term visa regime, which I think was very great for positive agenda for Turkish citizens traveling into Greek islands, was introduced. These were not just gestures, but they were not gestures of weakness, but actually they were strategic recalibrations that was necessary for this relationship building. Because Turkey operates within a very complex geopolitical environment, from Black Sea and Ukraine and Russia crisis all the way to the Middle East. So stability in the Aegean strengthens Ankara's broader strategic posture, but stability must be reciprocal. The high-level Cooperation Council meeting in Ankara is expected to prioritize economic expansion. In terms of bilateral trade at the moment, it is sitting at $6.7 billion, but the target is to increase this to approximately about 10 billion US dollars. For Turkey, economic interdependence serves as a strategic ballast. The deeper the trade relationship, the higher cost of escalation. And this is very simple, of course, in bilateral relations. But Ankara's position remains firm. Economic cooperation cannot compensate for unresolved core disputes, especially when it comes to security or energy. Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan very recently described this period as a historic opportunity, but he also, of course, underscored that progress requires one decisive step. And from Turkey's perspective, the step is very clear. Greece must basically abandon the maximalist maritime claims, avoid externalizing bilateral disputes through pressure mechanisms, and engage directly and consistently without preconditions with Turkey. Turkey seeks cooperation, it does not seek confrontation, but it will also not accept arrangement that restrict its maritime rights, limit its strategic depth, and of course marginalize its regional role. And this is something that's at the core of Turkey's position. So what does this ultimately represent? I think the visit is a test of strategic sincerity, a test whether diplomatic tone can be matched by substantive flexibility, a test whether Eastern Mediterranean energy becomes a platform for shared opportunity rather than continued rivalry. And nevertheless, the atmosphere is calm, but it can shift at the same time. The structures must be enduring, and if maximalism persists from Athens, the current calm may prove temporary. Geography binds Turkey and Greece together, but strategy and political will determine whether that geography produces structured cooperation or another cycle of confrontation. The choice now is not rhetorical, but it is strategic for these two neighbors that are able to help one another during natural disasters, during different calamities when it comes to their door. It is time for them to move forward with strategic cooperation that can mutually benefit one another, and it is based on a win-win approach. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and comment.